as close to zero as possible. Easily to rock under 10 grams a day.
The sugar diet. It is what it sounds. You're primarily eating sugar throughout the day.
I love the sugar diet. Why? Because I love sugar. And you can say I'm addicted to sugar, I don't care.
Going too long without carbs, and that happens in less than 24 hours.
Have a 2 kilo bag of sugar in the next 7 days, 300 grams a day. Just do it. Just mix it in your water, mix it in your smoothie, 100 grams in the morning, 100 grams at lunch, 100 grams in the evening. Do that.
The sugar industry paid experts to downplay health risks.
The sugar industry paid scientists to find either that sugar had very little to do with a range of public health outcomes, or more successfully pointed the finger away from sugar towards fat. And that's why you had, through the 1970s, a very successful deflection by the sugar industry of regulation away from itself towards the regulation around the consumption of fat.
This started the low-fat craze. Example of that, skim milk. Turns out that dietary fat was actually good for us. Dietary fat actually suppressed cardiovascular disease. We took that out, and so basically we engineered our products to be toxic.
And they didn't just make foods that were unhealthy, they actually promoted them as being the better choice.
Their strategy was to publish science that would be conflicting with evidence that might be linking sugar to obesity or diabetes or heart disease or tooth decay.
Along with paying scientists to write reports in its favor and masking its involvement by hiding its funding, the Sugar Association pushes back on findings it doesn't like, a strategy that's become common practice in many parts of the food industry.
Hey, welcome back to my channel. In this video, I'm going to talk to you about the sugar diet.
That is a very unhealthy way of losing weight, because when you look at some of the minerals that's in shops today, the likes of Coca-Cola, Fanta and that, they're all high sugar contents. And I see people walking around and they're eating a cream donut with a bottle of Coke or something similar to that.
They're not an essential nutrient. You know, like you need fat because of the fat. So you need protein for the amino acids. You don't need carbohydrates for anything. Fructose, okay, the sugar mainly found in fruit, and it doesn't show up. Galactose, found like a milk sugar or not. They eat a lot of sugar and eat very little to no fat, and they say, oh, it's good for losing body fat. But like my point is that like it's not healthy because eating a lot of sugar in the long run. Now it's temporary. Some people say, oh, use it as a tool, but I think there's probably healthier ways of doing it than that. What do you think on that? Like sugar now, when they say sugar, by the way, they say like it can be fruit, it can be jelly baby, it can be jellies.
I suppose too much of anything is quite bad itself. Like the body does require a balanced diet. If someone is obese, like it's not a matter of, oh yeah, I'm changing to have a sugar diet now and I'm going to lose weight. It's a matter of caloric deficit. In theory, they could be eating 2,000 calories of watermelon every day. If they're in a deficit, like they will be losing weight regardless of if it's 2,000 calories. If their deficit is 2,000 calories, if it's 2,000 calories of watermelon or 2,000 calories of turkey, if they're in a deficit, they'll still be losing weight regardless. So stressing one itemized meal on a daily, like the sugar diet, I think you called it, it's going to spike you're going to get diabetes realistically.
I suppose I wouldn't be a big fan of any restrictive diets. I think a healthy, varied diet is probably the best way to go.
Okay.
Yeah, I doubt there's any evidence to support that actually works in real life. So I'd want to see where the evidence is coming from on that.
Yeah. No, I don't think it will be healthy. I also I don't really eat desserts, so I'm trying to avoid eating sugar. Okay. Yeah. So basically, I don't think it's a good idea.
Yeah, I think that could work because not all sugars are bad sugars, right? Like sugars in fruits can be good for you. So I think, it could be possible.
Well, I can say don't eat too much carbs. It's not good for you. That's all.
Carbs is bad. Yeah.
all my life I try to be as healthy as possible. But yeah, I heard about the sugar because I think we burn first carbohydrates like the sugar, and then I think it depends of your heartbeat. You can burn fat, but you have to do exercise, I think.
Sounds pretty unhealthy. Sugar's addictive, and I mean, everything in moderation, I suppose, but it's about the balance and the nutritional value of stuff. So I wouldn't think having a high sugar or a low sugar diet is beneficial to anyone.
I think it's unhealthy. It's to go to the other extreme.
I don't know anything about it really, but I think if you probably take so much sugar, even if you're from natural resources, you still could develop diabetes. So I'll be concerned about that.
And yourself?
Yeah, same. Just not good. Yeah.
You have people as young as 20 are even coming down with diabetes, all because of the bad diets. If you look at some of the fast food places, there's a lot of children that go into it. The likes of parents bring their children in there, and a lot of them are overweight, where if they brought them to the basic food, what I was brought up with, the likes of potatoes, cabbage, sprouts, you know, it goes a long way, and it keeps people, it can help to keep that diet in shape.
When you're talking about the obesity there and all, like when I was asked you the first question on the sugar diet, a lot of people go on that it's like a high sugar and then low fat diet and moderate to low protein, and a lot of people lose, or it says, it helps us lose weight, but that's an unhealthy way of losing weight.
That is a very unhealthy way of losing weight, because when you look at some of the minerals that's in shops today, the likes of Coca-Cola, Fanta and that, they're all high sugar contents. And I see people walking around and they're eating a cream donut with a bottle of Coke or something similar to that. And they end up putting on a lot of weight. Being overweight, it's just like carrying a stone of weight on each arm, and that's affecting the heart.
So the sugar diet, okay, as the name implies, it's basically eating a lot of sugar and minimal protein and minimal to almost no fat. You can add a bit more in protein. Some people do a bit different. There's 3 different types of sugar, okay? They're split into 3 different categories. There's like monosaccharides, so that's like fructose, glucose, galactose, okay? And then there's polysaccharides, which is glucose and fructose, okay? It's 50-50 of those two. It's kind of like table sugar, basically. And then there's milk sugar, so that's galactose and glucose. People talk about fiber as well. We're going to touch on that as well. There was a guy from Walter Kempner, and what he did was a diet called the rice diet. So that was a high sugar diet as well. So it was white rice, some fruit as well, juice and sugar. He was noticing that like people that follow the diet just below the arbitrary range for diabetes, so he got that down for people, so it helped people in that sense. So white rice has arsenic. Rice in general, phytates can block the absorption of certain nutrients like iron, zinc, calcium, magnesium. When you look into tests, there's stuff like the HbA1c test, which we're going to talk about, and it's insensitive to certain things. They are low in sodium. It was very difficult to stick to that diet, and you had to hit them basically because they when they veered off track, because that's a very difficult diet to do, even for a small amount of time. We're going to actually talk about diabetes in a minute as well, okay? We're going to touch on that in a minute. There's a thing called FGF21, fibroblast growth factor 21, and what that is that like that can help. That's a peptide hormone, and that can help people lose weight. But you see, the thing is, right, it's not the high carbs itself, it's a restriction in protein. That's the thing. Because if you have the insulin spike from the protein and the carbs, okay, and you can get similar results by fasting, okay, I'll put up studies there as well, by fasting. Now, that'll be difficult to do over time. You can get the same results by, because I said again that the main thing is how they got the results was a restriction in protein. So that means that you can get results by restricting the carbs and having the high fat diet instead. People say we need to eat carbohydrates and that they're essential, but what they don't realise is that there's no essential carbohydrates. There's only essential fats, such as the fatty acids, and the fats enables you to absorb fat soluble vitamins
such as A, D, E, and K. And there's also essential proteins, the amino acids. You can make all the carbs you need exogenously through a process known as gluconeogenesis.
Gluconeogenesis is using non-glucose precursors for glucose. So basically, your body's going to create the glucose and use things such as protein. Okay? So you're never going to be short on it. People say, oh, it's going to be stressful on your body because it increases cortisol. So gluconeogenesis. Think about the word, by the way. Gluco, that means glucose. And then neo, new. And then genesis means like production. So the production of new glucose molecules from non-glucose precursors. Okay, and people say, oh, but gluconeogenesis is bad because cortisol, it raises cortisol. And cortisol is invariably released. Okay, it is released during distressing events. But that doesn't mean that's a bad thing unless it's chronic. Okay, really, you should look at the individual themselves, the presentation of the individual, rather than just seeing, oh, that it's increased the cortisol a little bit. See, and people say, oh, but you need carbs, you need an energy source. It's a source of energy, a source of fuel. Fat can be used as well as that. So there's two body composition hormones. There's insulin, which is like feeding and storing. That's what that hormone does. And then there's glucagon, which is burning and fasting. And glucagon, so you see the benefits of glucagon. And glucagon is a hormone that is involved in such things as lipolysis, which is the catabolism or breakdown of stored fat in your body. So you can see the benefits that would do to losing weight or losing fat. Because if you say you lose weight, that could be many things. Like that could be muscle, bone density, water, fat. What is it that you're losing? Is it indicated to lose that weight? Okay, so if you're eating a lot of sugar, that can cause problems with epilepsy. It's been shown like for over 100 years now that if you follow a low carb diet, keto diet, for example, then that can help with epilepsy. So you don't want too much sugar, otherwise you'll get seizures and stuff if you're prone to epilepsy. So that's a problem with having a lot of sugar as well. And I noticed that myself as well. When I cut the sugar, when I cut down to almost zero, then I have no issues with epilepsy. Some people say, oh yeah, but like there's simple carbs and then there's complex carbs. And complex carbs, like for example, whole grains, okay, they're better than simple carbs. But your digestive system breaks them down into glucose molecules at the end of the day. So it might take a slightly longer for complex carbs to be processed in your bloodstream. But when they enter the bloodstream, there's still glucose. Both of them are still glucose. They break down into sugar at the end of the day. So it doesn't matter really whether it's simple or complex. Just one takes a little bit longer. Both fructose and glucose block leptin, which is your satiety hormone. And honey is 40% fructose. Fructose can only be processed by your liver. Unlike glucose, it bypasses normal metabolic pathways and gets converted straight to fat. Your liver treats honey fructose exactly like high fructose corn syrup, and it can lead to non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Fructose doesn't trigger satiety hormones. You stay hungry. Fructose doesn't signal leptin, your fullness hormone. This is why you can eat endless amounts of sweet stuff and never feel satisfied. Sugar, it's very addictive. So if you just said, oh, 30 days, it's going to be very difficult after 30 days just to come off it completely. And then you've destroyed the D2 dopamine receptors, as I said. And that takes a long time to repair them. Yeah, because that's what I always say as well, like you said about sugar, it is addictive. When I talk about nutrition, people don't realise, it was actually shown, like, now this is in mice now, that cocaine, it's more addictive than cocaine, even sugar. Vilmar Stephenson was talking about this before, like he was an Arctic explorer, I talked about him before, and what he noticed is that people that ate lean meats weren't as healthy as people ate the blubber. He did a year-long experience and he noticed that he was a lot healthier and other people were when they ate the blubber of animals. Him and his colleague Carsten Anderson. I talked about this in another video, right? So you can get headaches, you can feel nauseous, that type of thing, okay? So you need that. Another thing is carbohydrates prolong and exacerbate cancer cells, okay? So, because there's a thing called the Warburg effect, okay? After Nobel Prize winner Otto Warburg. Okay, so a few more things I want to say on it, okay? Is that sugar, as I was saying, it's very addictive. So people are saying that cholesterol and saturated fat are bad for heart disease and all. Check out my video on red meat. I'll go into detail about saturated fat and cholesterol. But what you have to understand is as well is that like there is fraudulent studies that show that actually really they hit studies, and in 2015 it showed up that there is studies that sugar was actually correlated or caused or correlated heart disease, not cholesterol and heart disease. But the sugar industry hid that information from the public. So you can see how much fraudulence and all that there is around that they don't want people to know about that, okay? The sugar industry. 3 Harvard students were paid off to show that sugar was, I know that it was not sugar, it was fat that was the bad thing. But actually the sugar industry hid studies showing that it was actually sugar that was the bad thing, not fat, that it was the cause, or not cause necessarily, but was linked to heart disease. And then, like I was saying about glycation, glucose, so when they do a HbA1c test, okay, that's about the sugar test, it doesn't show up fructose, okay, the sugar mainly found in fruit, and it doesn't show up galactose, found like a milk sugar and all. So that test isn't that good, okay? The A1C test, and there's 139.85 milligrams. If it's above that amount, then that means that you're a diabetic. But it's insensitive, as I said, to fructose and galactose, that test. And then also, as I said about your teeth, the dental, because it's not only that the sugar itself affects the teeth, but it's also the lack of the vitamin A, D, K2, because vitamin K2 puts the calcium in the bones of the teeth where you want it, to have strong bones. It's not just because of sugar it's bad for your teeth, but also then they're lacking in vitamins like vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin K2, because you get that from fat, because they're fat soluble vitamins. And then carbohydrates, you don't need that much because they're not an essential nutrient. You know, like you need fat because of the fat soluble vitamins. You need protein for the amino acids. You don't need carbohydrates for anything. Even cows, people say, oh, but it eats grass. But that has a 4-chamber stomach, and it digests the sugar, the fibre and all the cellulose in your body, the plant cellulose, okay, and breaks it down, and then it turns it into saturated fat. It turns short-chain fatty acids into saturated fat. So you have enough, so going back to the point about gluconeogenesis, you have enough glucose in your body. People say, oh, use carbohydrates as a fuel source instead of fat, but the body doesn't choose or prefer, it's just whatever you have. So if you have a low carb diet, then the body is going to use the fat as the fuel source. And it'll be, but like if you use carbs, it's going to use the carbs. We have to choose between one or the other for the Randall cycle. And the fat is going to be the best because it's got the fat soluble vitamins, vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin K2, and it's got EPA and DHA. And it doesn't trigger leptin. So when you're eating a lot of sugar, it doesn't trigger leptin, which is the satiety hormone. So you don't know when you're full, okay? Instead, the other hormone, ghrelin, okay? So you're still feeling hungry, okay? Especially fructose, but sugar in general. If you want more of this, then make sure to subscribe and like the video, and I'll see you soon. Perfect, yeah.
So I don't know if I mean that, do you?
No, that's perfect, yeah.